Audio Jungle.
I am the Divine Prince, Ty Emmecca, Pan-African Spiritualist, Practitioner, Author, Advisor, Elagoon, Oloye, Hoodoo, Obeya, Bokur. I reside in this beautiful and legendary, historic Treme, New Orleans, Louisiana. So join me as I share food, music, culture, tradition, the rhythms, and the flavor of New Orleans voodoo. Respect the voodoo.
Greetings, everyone. I'm Camille Nylan, the teacher for our 4-week dance class series. Every week, it's on a different beat. You don't need any dance experience. You're just gonna have fun and get your groove on. Every Thursday starting July 10th through July 31st, 6:30 to 7:30 at the New Orleans Healing Center on St. Claude. Come on in, have fun, and get your groove on. Thank you, and look forward to seeing you.
I'm in New Orleans for Essence Festival, and what I'm witnessing is the failure of Black leadership. Please, I want you to really listen to what I'm saying. Like, check me out. Essence Festival, yes, there had been some decline over years from what its peak was back in the day. And the economy is hurting. Companies are hurting. That means sponsors are less willing to put up. You got the whole DEI thing, right? And so they're even less willing to put up money for something they feel like they don't have to anymore. And then the final death knell is this boycott. So we got a Target boycott, and then people are saying, well, Target put in some money for the festival, so let's boycott the festival. What you're seeing is what happens when Black leadership only gives you the ability to tear down and not build up. Please listen to what I'm saying carefully. I'm not saying the boycott is good or bad. What I am saying is there's a long history of Black leaders only having that one weapon. Now, in the past, some of that's understandable, like very limited options. But even in the past, there's a failure of imagination sometimes, right? It's Dr. King leading this bus boycott, and S.B. Fuller comes to him and says, hey, why don't we just buy the bus line? And there wasn't any interest in that. A failure of imagination. I deal with that in episode 7 of the Blackjack podcast. Then you have examples of really successful boycotts that just don't go beyond that. So we look at the boycott in Savannah, Georgia, back in 1960. Hosea Williams leads this movement. They boycott the downtown businesses, and in 1 month, those businesses lose $1 million, which is astounding. But where's the imagination to build from that? Look at Operation Breadbasket back in the day. When Dr. King came to Chicago in 1966, after that, they start moving to Operation Breadbasket, and they would boycott companies so that those companies would hire Black people. And there was, some success with that, and there were some good things that happened. But one of the things that you find, if you look at the history of it, a lot of those companies went out of business because they couldn't sustain being boycotted. And so if your only weapon is to tear down, just like some of those businesses that Black people relied on went out of business, now you're seeing a festival being torn down. Please hear what I'm saying. I'm not making a judgment one way or the other. I'm just saying, if all you give people is the ability to tear down, there are real limitations and consequences, frankly. I'm calling on Black leaders to give Black people the ability to not just tear down, but build up. So it's one thing to tell me to boycott Target, but give me something constructive to build us up. And this was, again, I keep saying the genius of Elijah Muhammad with this economic plan that the Nation of Islam had. They had an economic plan. Like, what can we do to build up, not just individuals, because Black businesses build individual entrepreneurs and there's some effect, but you need an economic plan for the group. Give me that task. Give me that to build. The Nation of Islam had slaughterhouses for meat. They had farms. They had trucks. They had distribution. They had a bank. They had all this stuff going on because they had a plan for the group. And I'm challenging us to say, okay, what is the plan? Not just for a few people to do well, but the group. Stop just giving me a hammer to tear stuff down, but give me hammers and nails and plywood and everything to build up. So I deal with that economic plan in episode 6 of the Blackjack podcast. You can check that out. But I'm just saying it can't just be what can we tear down. At some point, where's the plan to build up?
Honor and respect, honor and respect, honor and respect. Greetings and salutations, one and all. It is another edition of Revolutionary Hoodoo, New Orleans Voodoo Secrets and Recipes. Voodoo Hoodoo 101. Powered by, produced by, sponsored by, promoted by NOIVD, New Orleans International Voodoo Day. We continue to invite you to join us, support us, come on board and become a part of this historic and powerful annual event. Join our Benin delegation, join our Haitian delegation, and certainly the Pan African diasporic representation of voodoo in all of its forms and formats by becoming a part of this powerful experience and event. Please find us at www.vodouday.org. Again, www.voodooday.org for more information and coming updates about this continuing, growing, and evolving event. All is a blessing. And we are certainly grateful for our participating live chat audience here every weeknight at 9 p.m. U.S. Central Standard Time. Greetings, Nina Lloyd, Lydia Martin, Daniel Neal, a beloved one, Wapani, and Ray Alexander. We certainly appreciate you for joining us. And we welcome our co-host, the beloved Elder Reggie, known on this platform as Green Soap, Joshua Nylan Tanner, First Priest and Wild Man of Black Hawk Voodoo, and our beloved Queen Mother, Sista Toni Val Martinez. We were talking on the last episode about Queen Nanny of the Maroons and the Maroon history and experience in Jamaica and its comparisons, if you will, to Obia and the Maroon encampments here in Louisiana and ultimately throughout the South. Conflict between the British and the Maroons especially escalated in September 1728 when the British sent more troops to Jamaica, changing the balance of power with the Windward Maroons. With the troops come a new governor, Robert Hunter, who was especially hostile towards the Maroons. Hunter's fears were not entirely misguided. Just a year after his arrival, one of Nanny's lieutenants, named Jeddo, led an assault on Port Antonio. When British soldiers under a Lieutenant Soper tried to pursue them, the Maroons ambushed and killed the soldiers. Planters also showed unwarranted aggression towards the Maroons, though they were rarely successful. Hunter also hoped to address the numerous insurrections between 1694 and 1704 that involved enslaved Africans running away to join the Maroons, thereby strengthening communities that had already threatened British planters. Brian Edwards, a prominent speaker for the planters and meticulous record keeper during the 18th century, suggested that it was the planters' voice that carried more weight. According to Edwards, the primary cause of the First Maroon War was that the white planters and the members of the militia were becoming more aggressive towards the Maroons. These altercations became more and more violent. And I quote, "Scarce a week passed without their murdering one or more of them. And as soldiers became more confident and careless, the Negroes grew more enterprising and bloody-minded," unquote. Edwards also revealed planters' outrage at the fact that Maroons remained free. Enslavers feared that the Maroons represented a symbol of hope for the Africans who were still in captivity. Nanny of the Maroons was an especially potent symbol because she had already escaped and defended against the British and helped many Africans accomplish this same. Edwards adds, and I quote, From time to time, without the least provocation, and by their barbarous and outrageousness, the Maroons intimidated the whites from venturing to any considerable distance from the seacoast, unquote. The English were afraid and were even more scared and offended when the Maroons never came to terms with colonial administrators. This resulted in further aggression by the English, who sent militia forces into the interior to subdue the Maroons. The Maroons retaliated against the planters, raiding plantations at night and killing anyone they found. Throughout the war, the Maroons used guerrilla tactics to inflict greater losses on the militia in terms of both manpower and expense. And we see a similarity in this story in the manner in which Juan St. Milo and the Maroons here in New Orleans were treated. They were not only captured and hung in Congo Square, but were also beheaded. And supposedly the heads were placed on post in order to send a strong message against uprising, against attempts at freedom. And we must consider Juan St. Milo had a record of coming into town, coming into New Orleans, as well as the other Maroons, and doing their jobs, gathering resources, stealing supplies, and then escaping back out into these Maroon camps again. There was a documented time when they were coming and going from these slave plantations to the Maroon encampments out in New Orleans East and back again. So this fear of Maroons' ability to not only incite aggressive resistance to enslavement, but the usage of obia. Obia is just another version of hoodoo, a Caribbean version of hoodoo. It just has a root in Akan tradition. We did not have as large of a Akan presence here in Louisiana. We came primarily from the Bight of Benin, and there were many ethnic groups included in that, but the demonstration of obia and hoodoo were very similar. And so the fear of hoodoo, as well as Maroonage here in Louisiana, was very strong. And so Nanny and the Windward Maroons were especially dangerous to the colonial militia. In 1730, Soper led a large force against the Maroons. Nanny and Quayo, with a small group of Maroons, ambushed and slaughtered more than half of the 95 militiamen. The Maroons were equally successful against the additional regiments dispatched by Governor Hunter over the next 3 years, crushing each party in an ambush. As one of her guerrilla tactics, Nanny allegedly instructed the Maroons to disguise themselves as shrubbery and lie in wait for militia forces to pass by. Also, during these battles, Nanny allegedly used her obia powers to catch bullets fired at her by the militia and either reflect them or proceed to massacre the soldiers using a machete. Successive governors and militia captains were no more successful against Nanny than Soper was, and the death toll of Maroons in an attack directly on Nannytown was in the single digits. In just a few years, colonial Jamaica felt the cost of continuing conflict. By the end of 1734, enough planters migrated from Jamaica to North America that the island's British population had fallen to about 2,000. Sugar exports similarly fell, and the island went through periods of martial law. The Maroons capitalized on this opportunity, hoping they might destroy the last of the British forces in Jamaica. In 1734, Nanny's Maroons defeated a party led by Captain Shuttlewood, creating an opening for the newly freed Africans in the area to attack nearby plantations in St. George, including a fort and the barracks there. In 1735, a party of over 100 Leeward Maroons, led by Cujo, attacked a military barracks in Western Jamaica. And let me stop for a minute. Every time I say Cujo's name, my mind goes back to that horrible horror movie about the demonic dog called Cujo that was produced, I believe, in the 1980s. And again, it's another attempt of erasure and manipulation of words and names that would have brought us back to this history, to this information. They captured the soldiers there, took them back to Cujo Town, and executed them. In retaliation for the militia's attack on Nanny Town, the Windward Maroons launched an assault on Titchfield Fort in Port Antonio and attacked soldiers while there at dinner in Bagnall's Thicket in St. Mary's Parish. Maroons on both sides of the island continued their incursions into planter territory in 1736 and 1737, still a whole 40 to 50 years before the Haitian Revolution. And the largest governor recognized that British forces were unable to defeat them. While rebuilding barracks across Jamaica, the governor, Gregory, offered multiple treaties to the Maroons, but each was rejected by Cujo, who saw a path to victory and was not ready to negotiate with the oppressive British forces. However, Cujo and Nanny recognized that warfare was equally costly to the Maroons, and Cujo finally agreed to parley with John Guthrie. Guthrie, a local planter and militia officer known to the Maroons, was authorized by Governor Trelawney to offer peace treaties to the Maroons. The British government in Jamaica recognized that it could not defeat the Maroons if the war were to continue. In 1739, the colonial militia signed the first treaty with the Leeward Maroon leader, Cujo, who felt that the only hope for a stable and prosperous future for the Maroons was an honorable peace with the enemy. Queen Nanny opposed the terms of the treaty, and the Windward Maroons of Nannytown had generally been more rebellious during the 1730s. However, Cujo's treaty put pressure on the Windward Maroons to quickly negotiate their own peace. A year later, Nanny and Quayo also agreed to sign a treaty. Legend has it that only Quayo actually signed the document. Nanny still opposed making peace with the British, already on the run. However, later that year, the British made a separate land grant for Nanny and the Maroons of Nannytown, which granted, quote, Nanny and the people now residing with her and their heirs a certain portion of land containing 500 acres in the parish of Portland, unquote. In 1740, about 600 Maroons were bound by these treaties, and the First Maroon War was finally over. And as I begin to open up my co-host mics, again, I want to stress the importance of this history and these stories, a full 50 years, 60 years before the Haitian Revolution. The Haitian Revolution was our most successful slavery result and ultimately freed the island from enslavement. But it was by no means our only uprising, our only revolt, our only opportunity to fight back. So the idea that we somehow didn't fight back, that somehow we were docile, particularly here in North America, has always been based on a lie, always been based on a lie. And our last Maroon hero, St. Milo, who we acknowledge on Juneteenth, the day that they were beheaded in Jackson Square, remains a motivating factor in the continued presence of hoodoo, Voodoo with 4 O's, Obia, and the spiritual fortitude and power granted to the people by way of these practices and these traditions. So we will continue this in future podcasts. There's still quite a bit more to this story, but I'm going to begin to open the mics. Come on in, Brother Joshua, Nylan Tanner, Green Soap, Elder Reggie, please come on in, and Queen Mother, Sister Toni Martinez. Welcome to the conversation.
Good day, everybody. Hope you guys having a good night. It's been sitting here listening to that. It's so much to learn from that history, specifically there in Jamaica. As I'm listening, I'm learning and finding new things that I'm discovering about Obeah, and actually the footprint of how we fought back, how we lived, how we existed, and how we evolved out. I mean, till this day, I would say. I'm thinking I have a couple good friends that's in Florida that's actually from Jamaica. I've had the privilege of actually being living with some Jamaicans and straight from Jamaica, speaking patois and listening to them and listening to them tell them about their lifestyles and how they live there and how life is there now and how it was in the past, as they, tell stories about their past of living there. And it's connected with what we have experienced. Well, I can say what we have experienced here in the South, resisting, fighting, standing our ground in the ways that we know how to. A lot of that is pulled from our ancestry and our DNA and our makeup, which comes from all of that, which comes from the Bayer tradition, Hoodoo tradition, Christian tradition, Catholicism, everything that was thrown at us to be able to stop us from being who we were and expressing ourselves as a human being. And it's just powerful to listen to. Go ahead, Elder Reggie. I'm gonna pass the mic.
Elder Reggie.
Go ahead, Sister Toni. He might have stepped away.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I hope y'all having a nice time tonight. So glad you could join us. We always talk about the big battles and the ones that we first learned about, but I like to think about all the little battles that were fought on individual plantations. We did. We ground that glass up in that mashed potato and that gravy. We had a lot of unexplained debts that they really couldn't just put on us, but they know it was us, and that had them really scared, especially the women. White women were especially afraid of us, on being on a plantation with us. And this is another reason why they forbid us to do certain things. We had to wear our hair covered certain ways. And just don't touch anything. Whistle when you're bringing the food in to prove you're not putting nothing in it or eating it because you're busy whistling. And we've always resisted. And I think the current flow of Africans into the islands kept that resistance spirit strong in them. They were constantly coming in already angry and plotting to escape when they got there. All they needed was the first hint. And in the United States, after a while, a lot of the slaves got compliant, I believe, because they started breeding their own here instead of getting them, as they would say, fresh off the boat.
Yeah. Good
Hey,
show.
Elder Reggie.
Yeah, thanks, Sister Toni, for the pass. My mic wasn't open. Brother Joshua, blessings to you. Divine Prince, blessings. I want to pick up on a little bit when Divine Prince was referenced Nanny, I meant to say Nanny, and the catching of the bullets and the dodging of the bullets. That technology is still in play and used today in 2025. It's real heavy in the Ghana and the Togo area. There's certain herbs and there's certain rituals that they do that actually allows them, we may call it magic, but it's a great defense shield that they use. There's a great story when you visit Elamina Castle on the leeward coast of Ghana, where some of that technology was used to defeat the British, even on the islands, on that isle in Ghana. So that was a real good reference. And I just wanted to add to that technology was used back then in the 1700s, and it is still being used today.
Without the bullet, they couldn't have defeated us. It wasn't until they got them bullets that they could have defeat us. So the plan would have automatically been to get rid of that bullet, to be able to do some magic against the bullet.
That is true.
Because they hand-to-hand combat, they ain't gonna get it.
No.
I don't care what they say. Compared to them, we like the $6 million man. We faster, we stronger, we can run farther, we can pick up more. In general, as a collective.
Nzinga demonstrated that well historically.
Yes. So,
Queen Nzinga of Angola, for those who are unfamiliar.
That's a good point.
So, I mean,
with all that being, yes, go ahead, sister.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not trying. I don't really want to be divisive tonight, but the Africans who came to the New World put up revolt and resistance. Now in 2025, why is there such a struggle and fight against the Africans? Even if they come in, if they're a step behind in economics and reading, writing, or whatever, the Africans and American right now just seem to want to fight and just pull away from the Nigerians, the Ghanaians, the Togolese, the Senegal. I'm not saying we have to embrace everything they're doing, but right now we had a family fight, just picking apart each other and destroying systems that have been built over hundreds of years.
But that's part of
you got to think about how we came together.
That's part of the propaganda. We've been programmed like that from slavery. If you remember, even watching Roots, when they brought in the wild guinea man, they were afraid of him because he came from Africa. And then when he saw what he thought was low work ethics because of how they went about doing their jobs and stuff, he thought they was lazy, dumb not to see this because he hadn't learned to play the plantation games yet. But from day one, it's division. They have to keep us away from each other, not just the Africans in Africa, but every other person of color. They are the minority. And if we all united, that is their worst fear. So they play more on keeping us apart from each other. I mean, they tell us tales of horror. They show us African drought and babies with flies in their eyes and dying. They never show us the real Africa out of the countryside. They never show us the high rises, the casinos, the big businesses, the car dealership. They don't show us
Yeah.
that part. So here in America, our thinking is that they running around in the bush with monkeys. When they come
Mm-hmm.
here, we think they uneducated.
Yeah.
Then
Mm-hmm.
you got all the stuff that they do with the telephone, the Nigerian phone scams, and they pound us with that, and they pound us with that, and they pound us with that. It does go on, but we also have American phone scams
Mm-hmm.
that they do here, but they pound us with that to keep us afraid of each other, and fear breeds hate. We tend to hate and want to destroy what we don't understand.
Then we
It's
don't communicate
easier
with
to
each
do
other.
that.
We don't get
Yeah.
the opportunity to even communicate with each other and share the stories and share or
I
be an intimate in a way where we are sharing culturally those things with each other and piecing things together. I
I
mean,
was
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
There's a
back.
group out there. Go ahead, Josh.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. There's a group calling itself FBA. They even have a flag. They seem to want to fight against the Jamaicans, the Barbadians, the Africans, and I'm like, I don't understand this because it's a collective agreement working as a unit to get things done. And so some of the immigrants that coming in, the resources they are getting and receiving ain't taking food out of nobody's mouth in America. There's enough food to go around. You just have to work harder to get it. But
Let's not forget COINTELPRO.
this group called FBH seemed to be driving a wedge between international, national, and even local people of color.
Yeah, let's
For
not
all
forget
we know,
COINTELPRO. It's a conscious act of manipulation to keep us fighting and going back and forth. The FBAs versus the entire Pan African community.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yes,
was
Divine. That's what I'm speaking to. I've been seeing that constantly, and I'm not like, where's this coming from? That's a good read. That's a good read, Divine Prince. You picked up on it. Yes.
I think it's coming from an awareness within our communities of people of color that recognize that they are from or they have a long lineage of family that was here in America, and which does not remove us from a human correlation to where we all humans come from, which is Africa. But that was a long time ago. We're trying to divide ourselves amongst and not treat ourselves as human beings, which is not like, if you can see it, it's really that simple. If you think about it in the sense of like, we're all human beings. So like, for us not to say that we're not African or we don't embrace people from Africa because they're from Africa and we know we're from a different place, that don't mean that it don't mean that it doesn't mean that you're not a part of that same conversation. It doesn't mean that you couldn't learn from it. It doesn't mean that we can't grow from it. It doesn't mean that we can actually do so much more. Be honest with you, the outcome of us embracing those communities was the outcome of the Haitian Revolution. It was the outcome of many different revolutions and resistance that we fought back on. It wasn't just people from America, but it was people from America, but also people from other countries that was allies and had each other back and supported one another.
That is the school of thought I'm moving. I'm working with Brother Joshua, right? Because as we learn about obeah being used in Jamaica in the Maroons, those Maroon communities was it was a multitude of ethnicities and different African tribes, languages that came together and worked as a collective unit to defeat the British.
Yeah.
So if those tactics worked back then, And now in 2025, if we're not learning from what our ancestors and elders done, then we only hurting ourselves, because the divide is just an easier way to get conquered. I've been listening to them. I'm gonna let you talk, brother, right quick, please. I've been listening to them, and they're trying to really base it on reparation. If there's a payout, they don't want any other group to get the funds. So now they're trying to claim a Pacific slice of the pie, FBA. Go ahead, brother Joshua. Thanks.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I believe that there's an argument with that, but that is just a matter of fact in terms of you talking about legal representation and legal record. So that is nothing to really fight about. That already exists.
To me, reparations not gonna never happen. It's too complicated. Because truthfully, every black in the United States is not deserving of reparations. But who's going to figure out who is supposed to get reparations and who not supposed to get reparations out of millions of people?
The people that are seeking reparations. That's who's supposed to figure it out.
The people that's giving it got to know who to give it to. And they going to claim that's impossible to figure out. Because we so intermixed now, and over years, a lot of people, black people, have come here that wasn't in American slave trade. They're here now. Do they get reparations? I mean, it's just a lot. Are we deserving of reparations? Yes, we are. They paid reparations to the Jews, and that didn't even happen here. We didn't even have nothing to do with it. What, we felt sorry for our slow response. We felt sorry if we would have went sooner, we could have saved more y'all, so we gonna pay y'all for y'all losses. I mean, they paid the Japanese who they put in internment camps when they was fighting on World War II. Because they lost, they rounded them up and put them in camps like they're doing today. They just rounded them up. Their houses, their businesses just left there wide open. They paid them back for that. Hell yeah, we deserve reparations. But now it done got too difficult to decide, so it's not going to happen. The way they see it happening is giving money, free tuition to Harvard. Like Harvard is not doing free tuition. A lot of school, that's their ideas of doing reparations.
That's a good one.
Trump coming along saying no DEI programs. You can't offer blacks this, that, and the other thing. You have to give it all the way around. So we gonna be doing the reparations dance for another 400 years. Because it's not gonna happen.
Well, if what you say, if you were saying was true, then why are we making a rift with the Africans, the Caribbeans, the South and Central American people? I'm talking here in America.
We shouldn't be doing that. I mean, I haven't really seen a lot of that myself, but I don't be on social media watching.
Well, I know from personal experience and dealing with a lot of people, they have preconceived notions of people, and they don't stop to find out any better because they go off of their preconceived notions. Me, on the other hand, I took time to ask questions with every nationality that I met and asked why they did this and what this means to them. And I had the pleasure of working with an older African man who grew up and didn't come to America till he was in his late 20s. So he didn't get Americanized like a lot of them come over here and do. And he explained to me a lot. He asked questions and I asked questions. Of course, we're different, and why. I explained to him why. He said to me one day, why black people so lazy? I said, we not lazy. We've been working for free for 400 years.
Right.
We're not lazy. Why black people always late? I taught them what CPT meant. And I asked them a lot of questions, and that's why Africans don't care for Black Americans. And he was of that mindset until we start talking to each other
Yeah.
and saying why this and why that. And we learned about each other.
That's what I'm
He
saying.
went back to Africa because he also had a business. He bought me 3 beautiful dresses from Africa that his sisters made.
That's a prime example of how, how we can. That's how we should be approaching this time with anyone of color that we run into. We're a very diverse people. We're a world class people that have traveled the entire world. Like, we have the intelligence, we have the technology, we have all this evidence that shows us this, and then we turn around and I just don't think that's smart at all or intelligent at all to react or be against someone just because they're from Africa or just because they're here. And I get the reparation conversation, but like I said, it's a legal. It has to be handled by legal. There's legal footprint for that. There's documents, there's birth certificates, there's death certificates. There's a lot of certificates that can prove if someone is from here or is not from here or how long they've been here. So it's like, I don't understand the issue. The issue is personal, but it should not be in a way of us like attacking each other. Maybe we should be finding a way to be able to have these conversations a little bit more often, or be able to communicate with someone that you might not agree with more often, that look like you and might feel a different way. But everybody's entitled to their opinion. We have a world view on a suffering that nobody in this world ever went through.
Yeah.
Literally.
Brother Joshua, can I add one thing before we close out? Let's take the Essence Fest in New Orleans over the weekend. It may bring, I don't know, $400 to $500 million that weekend to the city of New Orleans. This push against the continent and African Americans right now may be the demise of the Essence Fest. Low crowds. Next year, people may not even come because the leadership is African, Nigerian, and Kenya. And because of those 2 things, there is a lot of African Americans that's pushing back away from Essence. So I understand the reparation piece, but we are talking real time, real world in the city of New Orleans right now with an annual festival that normally brings in revenue. That revenue may get stymied. We as the international New Orleans Voodoo Day organization want to bring in people internationally from maybe Brazil, Cuba, Africa, Canada, France, or whatever. And if we getting this type pushback in the Black community against other Blacks who may not be an American, that still may run the gamut of hurting us, what we're trying to do. And so we really have to look at what's going on and get a temperature of what's really going on.
Yeah.
Our biggest problem is nobody wants to talk and learn anymore.
No.
To each other. Nobody talks to each other. Look at us, even ourselves. At one time, we had to pick up the phone and call and dial a number and talk to the person, even if it was just to ask them a simple question. Now we text it. We don't talk to family members for days and weeks, but we text them in those days and weeks.
I check their Facebook page.
Yes.
Serious.
But we have to talk to each other and get to know each other. I had a conversation with a bona fide Klansman who, when me and him got finished talking to each other at work for a month, he did not know Black people did all of that And even though his daddy and granddaddy was Klansmen, if he would have knew black people would have did that and had something to contradict his daddy saying black people was lazy, all they did was rob and kill, he probably wouldn't have been a Klansman.
Mm, mm.
But he didn't find out what black people did that he wasn't taught until me and him had that conversation.
Wow.
We went a little bit past time tonight, but the conversation needed that because we were trying to unpack some things. But I'd still like to welcome all to the New Orleans International Voodoo Day. We give honor and thanks to Divine Prince, Brother Joshua, Sister Toni, and the collective audience in the chat. Ray Alexander, I read everything you text, and you be on point on some of your things, and we respect and we honor what you're doing. But I like to always close out to say that the spiritual medicine of voodoo brings healing and relief from the shackles of slavery that binds the master and the slave to the same chain of social cohesion. That is a very heavy thing to unpack with that, but we're not going to do it tonight. So with that, I say ashe, ashe, ashe. Good night, everyone. Have a blessed night.
Good night. Good night,
Good night.
everyone.
That's it.
So when I talked about chattel slavery initially and focused on the transatlantic slave trade, I saw some of y'all trying to check me. And listen, if you thought I left something out, you're right to speak on it. Because if I'm going to talk about Black displacement, I can't leave out how we were trafficked across every direction, not just the Atlantic. But let's be very clear. There were no untruths in what I said. What I shared was one part of a much bigger system. So today I'm going to break down the other part, one they rarely talk about, the Arab slave trade. Most of us are taught about the transatlantic slave trade, right? Where European nations kidnapped and enslaved over 12 million Africans and shipped them to the Americas. But long before that started, another massive slave system was already in place, the Arab slave trade. This began around the 7th century, just after the rise of Islam, and it lasted for over 1,200 years. That's twice as long as the transatlantic slave trade. Millions of Africans, estimates say anywhere from 10 to 20 million, were taken from East, Central, and parts of West Africa and sold across North Africa, the Middle East, Persia, the Arabian Peninsula, and even parts of India, Pakistan, and Southeast Asia. Here's the key thing. This wasn't one single trade route. It was a whole network made up of two major routes that we're going to break down next. So we're going to talk about the trans-Saharan slave trade, which is just the first part of the Arab system. The trans-Saharan slave trade, it involved moving enslaved people north, across the Sahara Desert, into places like Egypt, Libya, Morocco, and Tunisia. And this was done through caravans, which, if you don't know, included huge groups of camels and traders moving through brutal desert conditions. People walked for hundreds of miles in chains without enough water or food. Thousands died just trying to get to the slave market. So who were the victims? Most were young boys and girls from places like Mali, Niger, Chad, and Sudan. The boys were often castrated and made to serve in royal palaces, harems, and courts. The girls were sold as concubines, house servants, and entertainers. The violence was extreme, but so was the erasure. Most of these people never got the chance to build families. Many never made it out of servitude. And because they were often forced to assimilate, their history was wiped out. No records, no surnames, no lineage left behind. So Route 2, under the Arab system, is the Indian Ocean slave trade, which ran east, not north. This route took people from East Africa, places like Tanzania, Kenya, Mozambique, and Madagascar, and shipped them across the Indian Ocean to the Arabian Peninsula, Iran and Iraq, parts of India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, even Indonesia and southern China. This trade lasted over 1,000 years. And just like the Trans-Saharan route, it focused on Black labor, sexual exploitation, and military service. In India and Pakistan, enslaved Africans became soldiers, guards, palace staff, or enslaved women for royal households. Many of their descendants are actually still there today, but they're often marginalized and forgotten. So why don't we hear about this as much as we hear about the transatlantic? One word: erasure. Many enslaved men were castrated, so they couldn't have families. Others were absorbed into Arab and Asian societies, renamed, converted, and stripped of all identity. There was no diaspora like we see in the Americas because so many people were intentionally erased. And because Arab and Muslim societies never really publicly confronted their role in slavery, there's no global reckoning, no memorials, no documentaries, no widespread education, just silence. So yeah, I focused on the transatlantic slave trade in my last video because that's our direct link, especially here in the Americas. But if we're talking about Black displacement and stolen lives, we do have to talk about all of it. The Arab slave trade, the Trans-Saharan route, the Indian Ocean route. 3 names, 1 system, 1 long history of Black people being stolen, used, erased, and never properly accounted for. So we honor them, even the ones we don't know, because we're not just survivors of one trade. We're survivors of every direction they dragged us. And the world still owes all of us answers.
Please, allow me to show you something.
They say I'm crazy and that might be true. I got this white in my DNA, yet I'm coming for you. It's time we turn the tables, flip these motherfuckers on you. I wanna see you hanging from trees. It's time you pay for your dirt and your showtime. You created the monster, you created the beast. Now all this savagery you just gon' reap. I'm coming home, daddy, to the plantation, and I'm taking the lives of everybody, including the children, on some Nat Turner. Oh, do you hear that sound? It's about to go down. Unleash the beast, we about to tear this motherfucker down. Do you hear that sound? It's about to go down. Unleash the beast, we about to tear this motherfucker down. I met my girl Harriet at the gate. If you wanna know how she doing, yeah, she straight. But she had one question: when we gon' get up? All that talking tough, yeah, we don't walk it tough. She got it locked and loaded, got that piece up on her side. She looked me in my eyes and said, "Meet you ready to ride?" Moving forward, you gotta use both eyes. Watch your front and watch your back. Keep your hands up on your gas. Do you hear that sound? It's about to go down. Unleash the beast, we about to tear this motherfucker down. Do you hear that sound? It's about to go down. Unleash the beast, we about to tear this motherfucker down. He sit at the table, but he don't order no bacon. He greet me in those words, assalamu alaikum. Got them glasses on his face and them waves in his head. He go by the name of Detroit West. He looks me in my eye and says, "You only get one try. Know that your biggest opposition will come from the inside." I know you wanna love them all, but don't even try, because they'll smile up in your face while plotting your demise. Do you hear that sound? It's about to go down. Unleash the beast, we about to tear this motherfucker down. Do you hear that sound? It's about to go down. Unleash the beast, we about to tear this motherfucker down.